Greetings, dear viewers. Ruslan Bailov is with you, and today I have prepared the main updates from the front for you. I sincerely ask you to support my work by subscribing to the channel, and please write in the comments which city you are watching me from. At the beginning, I will take no more than 1 to 2 minutes, after which we will move on to the main overview of the current situation on the front. Many people were expecting a meeting between Trump and Zelensky. The situation was being hyped so actively that many believed everything would be decided right then and there. 95% already agreed upon, and the remaining 5% just a formality. It seemed that everything would be announced before the new year and peace would come. I know that many of you did not sleep. I did not sleep either. We were all following this event. And what was the result? After all that, Trump and Zelensky came out for a press conference, and Trump spoke much more about Putin than about Zelensky. He said that the United States wants to do business with Russia, that he understands Putin and his refusal to agree to a 60-day ceasefire for the sake of a referendum, and that Putin in fact wants good for Ukraine. If you had seen Zelensky's face, allow me to show you. Zelensky was in such a state that it was difficult to hide his emotions. So what did they ultimately agree on? Essentially on nothing. It was decided to create working groups that would continue negotiations. And we all understand perfectly well how long this process can drag on. But the core of the issue is not Putin. It is Zelensky's stubbornness and his unwillingness to make any meaningful compromises. Issues related to Donbas, territories, and army reductions are all at a standstill. Zelensky is digging in his heels, refusing to make reasonable concessions, while Putin stated that even the proposals currently on the table may soon be removed from the agenda. The military situation is developing rapidly, so now let us move on to the frontline overview. As often happens, while negotiations continue, the front does not stand still, and there are interesting developments. For example, in the former Seversk direction, now referred to as the Ryo-Alexandrovka direction, the Russian army continues to achieve success. Some call this the Slavyansk direction, but as I mentioned in one of the previous reports, this is not entirely correct. The immediate objective here is not Slavyansk itself, but a heavily fortified position on high ground, the village of Ryo-Alexandrovka. Until the Russians take it, advancing towards Slavyansk from the west is impossible. That is why many map analysts refer to this axis as the Ryo-Alexandrovka direction, and I agree with them. What do we have at the moment? An advance of the army southwest of Seversk, and this is not about a narrow sector, but a fairly wide front, more than 8 kilometers. The depth of the advance varies, from 2.5 to 4.5 kilometers in different areas. An important point. Recently, Russian forces advanced into the village of Reznikovo and captured it, pushing about 1.5 kilometers into residential areas. This sector now controls more than 20 square kilometers of territory, an outstanding result. This success shows that after the collapse of the Ukrainian armed forces' defense in Seversk, where they lost a fortified city in 3.5 weeks, they have been unable to stabilize the situation to the west. The front line has shifted 5 kilometers from Seversk, which is already a serious achievement. In this sector, Ukrainian forces are barely conducting counterattacks and are instead retreating. The front is gradually approaching Kryvyi Luki and Kolynik, key defensive lines, after which only Ryo-Alexandrovka remains on the path to Slavyansk. Over the course of a month, the front has moved 11 kilometers, and now only 23 kilometers remain to Slavyansk. Let me remind you that at the beginning of December, the distance to Slavyansk was nearly 34 kilometers. This is an absolutely colossal shift. The situation on the front continues to change, and the Russian South grouping continues its advances. Additionally, in the Dobropilya direction, Russian forces are regaining previously lost positions. In particular, the center grouping has reoccupied the village of Volnoye, which we lost after a Ukrainian counterattack in the summer. However, considering that the Pokrovsk agglomeration has been taken by us, the situation for the Ukrainian armed forces in this area will worsen in the coming months. Regarding Huliaipole, there was no news over the past day, but that does not mean nothing is happening there. According to information from several sources, during the Ukrainian retreat, our fighters managed to break through to Zaliznychnoye. This is an important defensive hub with a railway station and an industrial zone. It is still unclear whether it can be taken quickly, but if so, it will give us a significant advantage. In addition, successes continue on the Stepnogorsk sector of the front. Stepnogorsk has been captured, and an advance of 3.5 kilometers north of this settlement has already taken place. Among other things, our troops are moving toward Lukyanovskoye and, over the past day, advanced another 3.7 kilometers toward Pavlovka. All of this occurred in just one day. The area captured over the past 24 hours amounts to 10.5 square kilometers. Overall, over the course of a week, this territory has expanded by nearly 30 square kilometers, which is more than during the entire previous month. At present, 34.1 square kilometers are under our control, and, importantly, the Ukrainian armed forces have not achieved any significant successes during this period. Kupiansk still remains under our control, despite all the enemy's efforts. The Russian army continues to move forward, while the Ukrainian armed forces are facing serious difficulties. According to information published by the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, several settlements and key cities have come under the control of the Russian armed forces. In particular, this concerns Huliaipole in the Zaporizhzhia region, one of the most heavily fortified areas of the Ukrainian armed forces in the eastern part of the region, which Russian units captured quite recently. The total area under control amounts to 74 square kilometers. Huliaipole was a heavily fortified settlement with a developed network of underground concrete structures. Servicemen of the Vostok grouping published relevant video footage confirming the confident and stable presence of our forces in this strategically important city. This is the current situation. In addition, in the Zaporizhzhia region, the urban-type settlement of Stepnogorsk has fully come under Russian control. This settlement is of major strategic importance as it opens the route towards Zaporizhzhia. For many months, fierce and extremely difficult battles were fought for it. As a result, Stepnogorsk is now completely under the control of our troops. Next, the situation in Donbas. Here, the city of Dimitrov-Mirnograd has come under the control of Russian forces. The remnants of Ukrainian armed formations who were hiding in basements came out to our fighters with their hands raised and laid down their arms. Video evidence was also provided from Dimitrov-Mirnograd, footage showing flags installed in various parts of the city, confirming our complete and confident control over the settlement. It should be noted that this area was one of the largest fortified hubs of the Ukrainian armed forces in Donbas, the so-called Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration, where the most prepared units of the Ukrainian army had previously been concentrated. Not far from Mirnograd, the city of Rodinske also came under Russian control. There are video materials of objective control, including footage with flags from various parts of the city. For this small settlement, with a pre-war population of about 10,000 people, heavy and bloody fighting continued for several months. In the end, Ukrainian forces were defeated, and the city came under our control. In addition, the settlements of Volna and Sofiivka were also taken by Russian units in the Dobropilya direction. The Ministry of Defense officially reported today that two large villages, especially Sofiivka, represented a heavily fortified area of the Ukrainian armed forces in this direction. Their capture effectively opens the road to Kostiantynivka from the western side. Now regarding the situation directly in Kostiantynivka. Fighting continues there. Clashes are taking place in the southern and eastern parts of the city. In addition, immediately after establishing control over Sofiivka, our units plan to cut off the only supply road leading from the city of Druzhkivka. For a long time, this route has remained the main and virtually the only supply artery for the Kostiantynivka grouping of the Ukrainian armed forces. Obviously, blocking it is the top priority at the moment. In other areas of the Kramatorsk direction, fighting continues in the areas of Vesyukivka, Novomarkovo, Meskoye, and Markovo. No significant changes have been recorded there so far. However, there are directions where noticeable progress has been observed. In particular, in the Slavyansk direction, information is coming in that Ukrainian units have abandoned the settlement of Zakotnoye. At present, our fighters are carrying out clearing operations, and in the near future, the Ministry of Defense will likely announce its transition under the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Many are also interested in the situation in Kupiansk. The situation there is as follows. Ukrainian forces attempted counterattacks by sending sabotage and reconnaissance groups into the central part of the city. However, these groups were destroyed. They included former prisoners from Azovstal who had previously been exchanged and then sent back into combat on the side of the Ukrainian armed forces. The entire sabotage and reconnaissance group operating in central Kupiansk was eliminated. The day before, our servicemen published video recordings featuring fighters of the West grouping from various parts of the city, including the territory of a dairy processing plant and a sugar factory. Footage from the northern part of Kupiansk was also presented, confirming control over these areas. Fighting for the city continues, and efforts are underway to identify and eliminate remaining Ukrainian units. Ukrainian reserves are regularly subjected to airstrikes in the areas of Kupyansk-Uzlovoye, Kovsharovka, Blahodatovka and Sobolevka. That is how things stand. And where are those now who claimed that we had completely lost Kupiansk? The Ukrainian side announced that it had taken the city, but did not present a single confirmed piece of objective control footage. At the same time, our troops have video materials from the scene clearly showing that the city was not abandoned and remains under Russian control. Moving on to other directions. The Vovchansk sector. Offensive operations continue in the area of the Vovchansk hamlet. More than half of the settlement is already under our full control. Forested areas near Vovchansk, between Vilcha and Lyman, are also being cleared. Units are gradually advancing in the area of the backwater as well. Minor but steady successes have been recorded. Several strongpoints have been taken. In the Lyman direction, information has been received that Ukrainian forces abandoned 14 strongpoints without a fight. Our units occupied them without resistance. The enemy simply retreated. Overall, the situation along the front line is extremely unfavorable for the Ukrainian armed forces. Mass desertions, abandonment of positions, and flight are being recorded. A similar picture is observed not only in the Krasny-Lyman direction, but also in the Vovchansk sector, where about a dozen fortified positions have also come under our control. Thus, it can be noted that during December, 6 cities came under the control of Russian forces: Huliaipole, Seversk, Vovchansk, Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and Rodinska. Overall, December turned out to be an extremely productive month for the fighters of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. As for Stepnogorsk, the advance of Russian units continues north of the city. It has been possible to further expand the zone of control within the settlement itself, in the Zastepnogorsky, Lukyanovsky, and Primorsky districts. No new information has been received from the Kherson direction. In the Sumy direction, fighting continues for Kondratovka, Andriivka, and in the area of Rabisky. The village itself is under our control. These are the updates from the front line as of today. If you liked the material, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you don't miss new publications. I wish everyone good health, happiness, peace, and good luck. Until next time, goodbye everyone.